Hi there Ford owners. Today in your 2018 E-Series Cutaway, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's rear anti-sway bar. Before we put our parts on, we're going to go ahead and take it out on the test course and we're going to see how she reacts. The first section we're going to come into is our uneven bump section, and this is going to simulate potholes and other uneven terrain that you might encounter out on the road. And this is one of the biggest things that's going to impact, because this is really going to rock us back and forth as we're hitting a bump on one side and then the other. This is a smaller motorhome, so the sway in it really isn't that bad. You can definitely feel the sway back and forth throwing us around a little bit here, especially once we start moving a little bit faster, it really starts to throw us. Next we're going to be coming into the bump section where they're even, and this is going to be more forward and back. We're not really going to notice much difference here with our sway bars for this type of test. Once we get through here though, we're going to go into our slalom, where we are going to be performing some evasive maneuvers and feeling the body roll there. And I expect it to be quite a bit worse with our factory sway bar here than it will be when we go to test it out later with our new sway bar. And here we go. Oh yeah, you can definitely feel the roll on it when you go. It's not the worst motorhome that I felt out of them all. Again, this is a smaller one, but you can definitely hear things being thrown around in the back. Now this one's not too bad to where I would feel uncomfortable driving it, but I do expect that adding our new sway bars is going to help keep the items that are bouncing around in the back during our evasive maneuvers to be significantly better. Alright, we got our parts installed now, so we're going to hit our test course again, and I expect we're going to see some improvements in our slalom and our uneven bumps. I think particularly in the slaloms where we're going to notice it the most. We're coming into the uneven bump section now, and we're hitting these, and it's pretty darn solid right now. There's really not a whole lot of sway going on. You feel it more in the wheel than you do with the body rocking back and forth. And it looks like we're going to come to the end of our uneven bump section now and go into the even section. Definitely felt like we had an improvement there. Again, our even section, we're not going to probably see any differences here between our factory and our new sway bar. Let's get out of our even bump section though and take it down to the slalom section, where I expect we're going to see probably the most improvements there. And here we go. Oh yeah, that feels pretty good. I mean, we're whipping her pretty hard here, and it almost feels like you're just driving a regular old van. It doesn't feel even like a motorhome. It does got some sway. We can feel some things in the back moving around, but as far as stability and control, I would have no issues having a deer run out in me and being able to whip around it or anything else that might get in the way. It feels very comfortable. And this is what our sway bar is going to look like when it's installed. It is a direct replacement for our factory sway bar. That being said, this is going to be an upgrade over your factory sway bar, as the diameter of our sway bar here is going to be considerably larger than that of our factory sway bar. In addition to your sway bar, you're also going to receive new bushings and all the hardware you need to get it installed. The bushings that come included with it are going to be a high-grade polyurethane bushing that's going to be stronger than your factory rubber bushings and also resistant against UV and road grime, so you can expect it to last considerably longer. The big benefit of replacing your original factory sway bar with the upgraded larger Roadmaster sway bar here is to help further minimize sway. Sway is when the vehicle wants to tip to either the left or the right, and this happens when you're turning, performing any evasive maneuvers, getting affected by any crosswinds, or you happen to hit some uneven terrain or potholes in the road. Having a thicker sway bar here is going to put more force between our axle and our frame here, so when the suspension does want to travel, it has to push down on our sway bar, causing a twisting motion, and the sway bar wants to naturally be in this position, so it's going to twist itself back, bringing our motorhome back upright and helping keeping it straight. The big benefit you're going to notice with this is that before, if you were to turn, you have some sway, it's going to be slightly less, and then when you come back straight with your factory sway bar, it likely tips back and it might sway back and forth a little bit until it settles in the center. Having a larger sway bar here is going to minimize the oscillations you get back and forth,
and overall is going to improve the control that you have over your motorhome. All of this is going to result in you having more energy when you arrive at your destination because you weren't fighting as hard to keep your motorhome in a straight path and inside your lane. And it's also going to provide a more comfortable ride for your passengers because you're not going to be swaying back and forth as much, so it's not going to disturb them. So overall, you and your family are just going to enjoy a more comfortable, safer ride. We'll begin our installation underneath the vehicle at the rear by removing our original sway bar. We're going to start by taking off the end links on the side of the frame. We're going to be working on a lift here, but you can easily do this at home on the ground. We can now take our end link bolts out. We're going to use a 15mm socket to do so. You're going to find these on the side of the frame, and we're going to take them out on each side. There are nut plates that are on the frame on the other side. You can simply slide those down and then pull those out to get those out of the way as well. You may need to pull your brake line out just a little bit to get the one out on the driver's side. We can now take out our bushings. We'll use a 13mm socket to remove the 2 bolts on each of the bushing clamps. After removing the first bolt, I like to thread it in by a couple of turns just to make sure that it holds itself up while I'm taking out the rest of the hardware. Now that we've got all of our hardware removed, I'm just going to take out those couple of bolts that I had threaded in, and then we'll set our sway bar aside. Here you can see our new sway bar next to our old sway bar, and you can definitely tell that our new sway bar from Roadmaster here is considerably thicker in diameter than our factory sway bar. This is just going to give us more anti-sway power than our other one has. This is going to have more force in its twisting motion. We'll now prepare our end link bushings on our new sway bar. You'll receive some lubricant in your kit, and we're going to put it all on the inside of here. You may want to wear gloves when doing this, as this can irritate the skin for some people. So if you have a little bit more sensitive skin, I would highly recommend some gloves. And we're just going to smear it around all throughout the inside. And then the little bit of excess that I got on my finger, I like to take that and just smear it on the outside where the clamp's going to sit, because that can just help minimize any noises and squeaks that you may get. Once we've got everything all smeared around, your bushing will split and it will slide over the sway bar. You can then, if you want, take the clamp and slide it on there. Sometimes this clamp likes to fall off pretty easily though, so if you want to leave it on off till later, that's perfectly fine. We're going to do the same thing to the other side of our sway bar now. We can now take the factory bolts that we had removed from the sway bar bushing clamps, and we're going to put some red Loctite on them. It does come included with your kit, and we're going to prepare all 4 of those bolts with some Loctite on it. It's going to be a little easier to have this done already when you're trying to hold the sway bar up there and put this on at the same time. We can now lift our sway bar up, and we're just going to use those factory bolts right back into the factory holes that they came out of. We are going to place washers on them beforehand as well. These are the smaller gold washers that come in the kit. So now we can lift our sway bar up. It is pretty heavy. If you have an extra set of hands available, I would highly recommend you take advantage of that, but it is doable by yourself. And it's actually easier to do this on the ground at home than it is on a lift here, because you can just rest the sway bar on you and lift it up to line it up to get your bolts installed. Once you get 2 bolts started on one of your bushing clamps, it makes it significantly easier because that side will hold itself up, and you only have to focus on holding the other side. We can now go back and tighten down our bolts with our 13mm socket. And then we can torque our hardware to the specifications found in our instructions. We can now put our end links on. We're going to take the longest bolts that come in our kit and slide the large washers on it. We're then going to slide that through our end link, place another washer on the other side, and then slide the whole end link. You want to make sure you slide it up the frame because you need it to fit in that location when you're doing this. And then we'll come back down to our bolt and slide it through. On the other side, we're going to place a flat washer followed by a nut. We're now just going to hold our sway bar up until it's parallel. And then our end link here, we want that to be straight up and down. And then we're just going to mark the frame in the location where our sway bar end link is lined up. We're then going to drill out the hole that we marked using a 17/32 drill bit. You do want to check on the other side to make sure there's nothing there. We do have some brake lines close to this location on the other side, so when we drill through, we want to be very careful when we poke through the other side. Now that we've got this side drilled out, we can slide our bolt through the end link to hold it up, and then we can mark the other side and drill it out. Once you get the other side marked, you can take this bolt back out, because that way you can slide the sway bar down to make it easier to drill that side. Now that we've got both sides drilled out, we can take our long bolt, we're going to put a washer on it, slide it through the end link into another washer, and then through there we're going to go through the hole that we drilled in the frame. Be careful for your brake line there. You will likely have to just kind of slightly bend it down out of the way. We're going to place a flat washer on the other side, followed by a locking nut. We're going to do the same thing over on the other side for our other end link. We can now go back and tighten down our hardware with a 19mm socket and wrench. We can then go back and torque our hardware to the specifications found in our instructions. Now that we've got everything tightened down and torqued, our installation's complete, so we can take it out on the road and verify that there's no noises or anything going on. If you do have any clunks or rattles, then I would just suggest double checking your bolts and making sure you get them to the proper torque. And that completes our installation of Roadmaster's rear anti-sway bar on our 2018 E-Series Cutaway.